Fat dog on step, check. Nice day, check. And let's go find Fat Cat. And I got lots and lots to cover on this one. Disclaimer, I can't really tell you 100%. Okay, Fat Cat, check. Hey, Kazoo, what's up, buddy? Says you woke me up. I only get 23 hours of sleep a day. How could you? That's true. That's what, poor guy. Okay, so take this one kind of with a grain of salt because there's a lot flying around on this one. I've only found a couple of sources on it, so I like anything, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But it looks like Russia is sending a flotilla from the Black Sea Fleet to off the coast of Texas, or I guess you'd be in the Gulf of Mexico. So there's a lot of rumors why. Now they're staying in international waters, obviously. But these are basically comprised of I forget, there was a website that had she had all the names of all the ships that were going to be involved in this. There are probably about 8 or 10 ships all total, including submarines, boomer submarines, and, basically one of their more powerful, Kharkov? I can't remember. Anyway, it's one of their bigger, you might as well call it a battle cruiser. It's not quite a destroyer, it's a little bit bigger. It's a missile boat anyway, and basically an aircraft carrier killer. You know what I mean? And of course, they've got a couple of different types of submarines: attack submarine, I believe, and a nuclear strategic submarine, as well as rescue submarines. And there's also a part of the flotilla is a medvac, a naval medvac team or whatever, and there's going to be Russian Spetsnaz also, in this training drill. Where exactly this drill is going to take place, I'm not 100% sure, but the rumors are this, and there's a lot of rumors, and hopefully I don't miss it, because there's lots going on in the world right now. Now, some people say, if we remember, and you can track this, okay, the Russians said that they were going to have warships in the Gulf of Mexico in 2015. They said I was actually kind of surprised we haven't seen them earlier. But then again, maybe they were there all along. We've already kind of, this is an embarrassment for the United States every time the Russians show up in the water unexpectedly. Like that submarine that kind of, was steaming back on the surface from Venezuela, I think last year or the year before, which was in the Gulf of Mexico for 2 months before they knew about it. And then, of course, in Hurricane Sandy, when a Victor-class submarine, broke down and shows up basically in Norfolk. Yeah, hello, we need new submarine part. You have some. We have vodka to trade. It's like, kind of scary. Meanwhile, when you have about a third of the U.S. naval fleet out surrounding China, there's again nobody at home. Everybody, the military's everywhere. Nobody's at home. Who the hell's going to defend the place? Okay. Now, there's other things that we have to factor in. Now, Joe Skousen, I was listening to him, and I like Joe Skousen a lot, and he finally said something that, kind of reaffirms what I said, that the Soviet Union never collapsed. It just diverted the money to the military-industrial complex and sold the resources, pennies on the dollars, to the oligarchs. Well, pretty much the same thing that's happening in the United States right now. The only difference is the United States is doing it overtly. The Russians did it covertly. And there's lots going on in the world today. So again, my mind's like, okay, don't forget this, and I'm sure I'm going to forget things. So we go back. Okay, we know the Russians have said, that they were going to have training in that. Now, the United States has just agreed to open up embassies in Cuba, and all of a sudden you hear about Russian ships steaming towards. I don't know what port they're going to play in. I mean, they have Spetsnaz on board, so if they do, that means they're going to be, if this is not just a rumor and it's true. But the lady, again, I know a lot of people ask me, can you provide links for I go through so much, and I'm only one guy, and I don't have internet at home, so a lot of the stuff you've got to hunt down yourself. But it does make sense, because, again, the Russians, they play around in Venezuela. They could be doing a couple of things here, something that I've speculated about and something I said to watch out for. That type of thing. But we also know that the Russians have been I think they opened up a base in Cuba as well. And this could be, again, the Cubans are going to get the raw end of the deal here. I think the Cubans are going to stay pro-Russian government-wise. And just, they're going to get stuff from the States But they're just going to use the states. They're not actually going to become pro-American. They're never going to do that. I mean, I'm not talking about. I mean, you got to understand. When was the last fair election in Cuba? You know what I mean? Exactly. So government-wise, never mind the people. It's always about the governments, right? So, and another thing, with all these drills going on, some people, now this one's a bit down the rabbit hole. I don't quite believe this one myself, just because it doesn't make sense. But there is kind of some, it could happen, And one YouTuber put it very well. He says, like, the Chinese, they're forward thinking. They think a couple hundred years in advance. The Russians the same thing. But the Chinese, they'll do something very incremental and whatever. Where the Russians will pull a maneuver, a chess maneuver that could end up with getting their hand cut off. It's like win big, lose big. That 50-50 bluff that I've been talking about. Now, one of the things, we go back to that Cossack Banditos biker shootout. Now, some people have speculated, and again, take it for what it is, because you can never really, prove this stuff, but you can sort of see a pattern emerging. That they said it was about Russians trying to arm up patriot groups in the United States. Now, okay, is there anything that could back this? Well, we know Jade Helm is going on, and it's to find insurgents. Again, Jade Helm is for just about anything. If World War III were to break out, well, you got Russian warships pretty close to your coast, so you're ready for them. If they're on the land, but the soldiers are where they need to be if Spetsnaz were to invade, which I don't think they would. They wouldn't. The Russians wouldn't invade with a couple hundred people. But then again, they could put in insurgents. Again, like you see in the Ukraine, you got 50 local citizens fighting as rebels under the command of maybe one or two special forces, what's called FSB, the new KGB guys, those type of things. So they could do that, and that's exactly what Jade Helm is about. It's or one of the main things it's about. But it also, if a financial collapse were to happen, everybody's where they need to be. If gun confiscation, which I'm not really worried about the gun confiscation one. I know a lot of Americans are, but I think that's just kind of a sidetrack issue. You got bigger fish to fry. They're not really worried about the guns. I mean, armored tank take Trump's gun. What they're worried about is the guy that are going to go Sunni on the government. IEDs. Blowing up infrastructure. All these data command centers like in Utah and stuff like that. Those things are going to get call them a Yankee Hezbollah rocket. They're going to get these surveillance grids and stuff like that are completely fragile. That's what they realize this now. Okay, yeah, it's the best thing in the world when you're going after jihadists in the middle of the desert. But a home insurgency, well, the first thing people are doing is, okay, they don't even have to destroy the building. They just have to disrupt the power, that type of thing. And I'm not giving anybody any ideas they don't already have, and I'm not telling anybody to go out and do anything bad. Any sort of revolution, again, the revolution hangover, do you get Fidel Castro or do you get George Washington? Most places end up with a Castro, just saying. So the other things, the bizarre things like, Walmart's being, getting guard towers and stuff like that, working out with FEMA and barbed wire fences. This is a little suspicious, and this is making people nervous. Again, Jade Helm, it could be all done backdoors, but yet it's out in the public for the public to see. Who are they really sending the message to? I don't think it's to the people. I think it is to something else, something that we don't know yet. But anyway, getting back to that, we know Texas has been asking for its gold back, and we know how the Federal Reserve is, not very forthcoming about giving people their gold back. Whether it's Germany, whether it's the Netherlands, whether it's pick a country, nobody gets their gold back hardly at all from or they get such small denominations back, it's hardly worthwhile mentioning. And kind of like when Ukraine, the U.S. went in, they took all the Ukrainian gold, and then all of a sudden when they started returning it, it turns out it's just gold-covered lead bars. That they are painted. They even paint. I don't even think it was gold-covered. I think it was just painted. So that type of thing is what the rumor was. So, again, take it with a grain of salt. But it does make sense that, okay, we see this at a time when the whole racial division thing that in the States, and if you're an African American and you're watching this, and again, and if I was a racist person and I hated Africans, I wouldn't be telling you this. Think about it. Why? Because it would work out into the favor of the people that want to get rid of you. What I'm telling you is this. They want a Ferguson-style riot or Rodney King-style riots across the United States with African Americans. Why? It's an excuse to lock down the populace. That's what they want. And the button they're pushing is the African American one. Look at this shooting that just happened. Okay. Where they got rid of the Confederate flag. Now they're talking about digging up dead Confederate soldiers. And you have all these kind of whack job groups going around, screaming, take this down, take that down. You had a flag burning ceremony in Washington yesterday, burning Confederate flag and the Stars and Stripes, that type of thing. And it's this communist group that seems to always be able to get a ride to wherever these trouble spots are. And there, again, it always goes back to George Soros. That kid that shot up the church there in Louisiana. Was Louisiana? Well, anyway, shot up the church. The most recent shooting. Even his manifesto, it seems like it was copied from the last Rhodesian. There seems to be links to George Soros' son. And then the what's called Southern Poverty Law Center, puts out photos and manifestos that were taken like that day, that type of thing. Weird kind of stuff with the timestamp. So again, and just the fact that Obama, hijacks this guy's funeral to push gun control and more racial division. Meanwhile, he butchers Amazing Grace on top of that. But again, you see the agenda. Again, we see all these terrorist attacks around the world which has nothing to do with Islam whatsoever, but yet this shooting has everything to do with the Confederate flag, so we've got to remove the monuments, dig up the soldiers. They're taking away a Ten Commandments monument in, I think, Missouri, and instead they're putting up a satanic monument. Like, you can't make this stuff up, right? So the divide and conquer is full force, and it's just coming out of whack job everywhere, right? Now, the other thing is that while this is going on, okay, and stuff like that, again, secession movements, they're being talked about more and more, not just in the United States, but globally. Look, okay, Greece, okay, they're in trouble. It doesn't matter which way they go. Okay, either you accept the bailout and you lose your retirement on austerity, or you collapse and you lose your retirement from from the collapse. So it doesn't matter which way Greece goes, they're screwed no matter what. I mean, you can't pay no taxes and retire at 40. Sorry, it just doesn't work. And if you can't control your currency, devalue your currency, you can never ever level it out. You know what I mean? So, but that's not the wild card. Austria is now having a referendum whether they want to stay in the Eurozone, and they're one of the best countries in the Eurozone. They're doing well, and they're like, hey, no, we're out of here. We want to get out of here because they know the storm's coming. They don't want to be put on the hook for the next bailout. So that's black wild card, black swan event right there. So again, the Eurozone is dead and done. It just doesn't know it yet. Same with the United States. It's dead and done, doesn't know it yet. Most countries are. They're completely screwed. The thing is what they want in the States, and this could be a desired effect by, again, who benefits the most? The Russians and the Chinese will benefit the most from a civil race war in the States. Well, whether it's a race war, civil war, secession movement, it wouldn't really matter. The idea is to get the soldiers to burn up all the ammo and munitions fighting each other, and when they're done, whoever the winner is, that's when your Red Dawn invasion comes in. So the other rumor is this on these warships, which, again, take this one with a grain of salt. Is it believable? It's possible. But, again, this could be just, who knows, right? And they're saying that these warships are coming to the aid of Texas, that Putin is sending these warships to help arm. And something I said is, look, the Russians are looking at the Ukraine saying, if you destabilize our borders, we could do some payback. And they've also mentioned arming Mexico. So maybe what they're doing is moving the weapons into Mexico, and then the Patriot groups are grabbing the weapons from there and heading back into the States. And apparently it has to do with the biker gangs and stuff like that, which if anybody can move illegal weapons, it's going to be bikers, right? So they're saying maybe that the Russians are coming to the aid of Texas and stuff. I don't buy that one. No, I don't buy that one. It's possible. It's very possible. Why? Because again, the Russians would have, we'll help you. They would love to see the United States embroiled in a civil war. Again, Texas wants to secede. They want their gold back. They got $1 billion worth of gold. Texas could, it's one of the largest economies in the world. It has a larger economy than most countries. The thing is also Texas is a massive resource, so you could see how the Fed wouldn't like it to secede. It would be a hit to the rest of the United States. Another point made is most Texans refer to themselves as Texans first, Americans second. So again, you see the Confederate flag being burnt and stuff like that and taken down. This could be, again, more propaganda to move against the secession movement. You never know. That said, that's what some people say that the Jade Helm is really for, is for this. Now, whether it is or not, time will tell. I'm not thinking it is. I'm thinking it's just, the Russians are putting the warships where they said they were going to put because they're doing it as a show of force. Just to kind of not even a show of force, just to let the Americans know that, yeah, we can be, we got boomer subs off your coast too. So I think it's more than that. I don't think the Russians have anything to do with it. But I could see the Russians arming up the Mexican cartels, which in turn would arm up the resistance. So take that one with where it is. At the same time, again, remember, every country has a bail-in clause now. Every European country in North America. So we know that the financial markets right now are in they're gone in wombat mode. The Dow Jones is not the economy's wealth. That has nothing to do. These are Fortune 500 companies that get propped up by the government. Of course they're going to. Okay, there's a few that don't get government subsidies, but the ones that aren't doing well get propped up anyway. So we know that a major financial calamity, everybody's talking about it, it's on its way. But the question is, I say the economy, even though Greece got another can kicked down the road, it doesn't matter. It's becoming so insolvent that it doesn't matter which way you go. And one thing I said, that there would be no economic collapse till war comes. So they're just going to kick the can down the road till they can get a war started. Now, something Joe Skousen said, and this I have to 100% agree with him on this one, is that the United States, one of the things about their foreign policy, it is to create hatred against the United States so that they get an attack. So you follow me on this? So if you're a U.S. soldier, you might this pertains to you because you're the cannon fodder that they're going to put out there. Of course, they sell it, and this drives me nuts when I hear this. I'll say something about if the Americans attacking the Russians, it's going to be a bloodbath. Yes, I'm sure the American military would win in the end, but after what, 200 million dead? Oh yeah, but we won, woohoo! And then of course you get the Russian nationalists on the other side saying, we're ready for American scum, bring them on, we'll kill them all. That's what they want you to do, stupid. You guys are fucking idiots, both of yous. They want you to kill each other. That's the whole point of getting into a war. It's frustrating. It's like, you guys are stupid. You're really, really stupid. That's exactly what they want. They don't care how many of you get killed in the process. It's a benefit for them. They want the war. They're waiting for you to start shooting at each other. Have you not gotten it yet? The Russians have. The Russian government has. They're the ones keeping us out of the war. Point. Okay. Now, the coup, this is where Joe Skousen and I disagree. I say the coup was a Maidan, in the Maidan. Okay, you just follow the money, follow the timing, follow the politics. The United States, the EU, with the Rothschild-owned IMF, the Anglo-American Empire, all together, okay, did the coup in the Maidan. You had Victoria Nuland out there, John McCain, all these douchebags, sorry, it gives douchebags a bad name, but all these goons out there supporting these Maidan protesters. You had George Soros money fund the neo-Nazi faction, right sector, Sadoba Party, and then now is the Azov Battalion, which bases its battalion badge, going for history, off the 2nd Panzer Division of the SS Waffen. These are the children of the Nazis. They have Nazi lineage. Ukraine was half with the Nazis and half with the Red Army in World War II, and then the other third that was in the middle was the dead nationalistic Ukrainians. Well, that's what's going on now. That's what they're stoking. Kind of like in the States, they're trying to get black versus white and Mexican. In Ukraine, it's ethnic Russians vs Ukrainians. That's same play. It's the same play. Divide and conquer, right? And while these idiots are shooting at each other, they don't realize what the real game is. And this is the part that most people don't get. And this is so important. This is where I disagree with Joe Skousen. The Russians counter-couped. They didn't coup. They counter-couped. Why? Because they already had the Ukraine. They already had control of the Ukraine. Yes, Yanukovych was a corrupt bastard. Nobody disputes that. The Russian government's corrupt. But is Washington any better? Absolutely not. It's a lot worse. But why did he stay? And if you're in Eastern Europe, this pertains to you. You are the cannon fodder. They want the Russians to kill all of you. Why? So they get an excuse to go into Russia. Are you not getting it? It's the Anglo-American Empire side of the world fighting with the Eurasian Pacific Empire. It's two empires fighting. That's what it is. when when Joe Skousen says the Russians are terrified of a war, they're not terrified of losing Ivan fighting Johnny. They're not. They don't care about that. They're worried about losing empire. Are you grabbing on? Now I'm going to make something that a lot of people have been correcting me on, and I'm going to tell you where I got this and how I got this. I know I'm bad for not putting links down, but I put the dots out there. It's up to you to go look at. Again, I'm one guy. I don't have a team to do this, right? Moldova. Okay, now I said Moldova was a part of NATO. Now I got this from either Euronews, one of the NATO sites, on YouTube, and it said that whatever site it was that it was on, because I go through so many of them, and I don't always go back to the same ones, it said that Moldova was a part of NATO. Maybe they did a back deal that we don't know about. Because, again, right now, Eastern Europe is kind of up for grabs. But you have to understand, what they wanted in the Ukraine in the first place, okay, was to do the coup in the Maidan, and then get the Russians to come steaming in with their tanks, and then, we got to come and save them. But the Russians were too smart. They didn't come in. They didn't come in. They took the battalion. They took the Russian Federation stuff off. Said, paint over it. Take your badges off. Little Green Man invasion. They were already there anyway. They didn't come in. They were already there. Now, a few commanders in tanks and everything are flying across the border in unofficial capacity. Soldiers going on a Sunday stroll with T-72s, that type of thing. So the Russians are fighting a covert war. And they can bleed this one out because they and everything they've told NATO not to do, don't expand or we start militarizing. The other things they said: do not put missile systems on our border. We reserve the option of a preemptive strike. Well, what does NATO do? Well, they put missile systems right on their border. They want it. They want the Russians to strike. Think of it like two kids in a schoolyard facing off towards each other. No, you throw the first punch. No, you throw the first punch. If the United States tries to do regime change in Russia, okay, and then eventually in China. One of the things is that the American people are saying, you started World War III on purpose? So they want the Russians to start it. Are you not picking it up? They want the Russians to shoot first. The Russians probably will have to at some point shoot first. But I think they're going to do a couple of bluff charges before they actually get into it. The Russians aren't going to do it till they have absolutely no options. Because the Russians, yes, their military is getting better. It's well enough trained. I mean, if anybody out there thinks it's going to be a walk in the park, invading Russia, well, ask Napoleon. Didn't work out for him. Look, the Russians burnt down Moscow rather than let Napoleon take it over. They have that kind of mindset. If we can't have it, nobody can. Again, loser takes all. We're losing the war. Hit the button. Launch the missiles. Screw them all. They're like that. Again, win big, lose big. They're willing to go that far, but they're willing to do everything to avoid going that far. So that's the good thing. They're the only ones keeping it. Some people say that the AIIB is a Rothschild invention. Now, Harley Schlinger was on STG Bull Report saying, no, he says it's not. That's the whole point of why we're on the brink of World War III. Yes, you got guys like Soros and all these other douchebags and Kissinger all invested in China, and you had both of them call for war with China. But one thing, Henry Kissinger said China must get in line with the New World Order, or the conflict will wipe us both out. It will wipe us both out. What conflict would he be referring to? Again, these are the guys that start this stuff. So that kind of does tell you that, no, that's the problem. I'm not saying the AIIB is, and the Chinese, I mean, the Chinese are just as corrupt as, their banking system is just as inflated and corrupt as the American one, but they're going their own way. That's the no-no. Again, the empires, they're fighting. You have two empires on this planet. That's it. Anglo-American Empire, Eurasian Pacific Empire. And more people are starting to join the Eurasian Pacific Empire, which is a threat to the Rothschild Empire. I mean, heck, you even got, in Bolivia, I think it is, I think it's Bolivia anyway, they're building a canal so that they don't have to use the Rothschild-owned Panama Canal. I mean, this is big. This is big stuff. This is empire and regime swap. You know what I mean? So it's competition. Rothschild-led banking system can't have that, right? So they're willing to get all... The idea I think they have is get Eastern Europe into a big war, and the rest of Europe will be saved, and screw the Eastern Europeans. All the old Eastern Bloc countries. I mean, look at all the arming up there. We've got thousands of tanks, thousands of troops. The other thing I said was getting back to the Transnistria squeezed in between Ukraine and Moldova. where they have the Russian peacekeepers, Russian peacekeepers there. And again, look into it again. Maybe Moldova did join NATO. Who knows? It's just a report I got, and maybe it's not true. Maybe it is. Would they really tell us if they did? You know what I mean? With the politics that are going on now, look at all the stuff that's being signed behind closed doors. Who knows, right? Now, there's another thing to keep in mind here. Again, the economy, I think, is the catalyst for the quickening. But, you look at the frequency of all these drills. Again, 400,000 rapid reaction man force for NATO. Where they're going to get all the guys, that I don't know, but that's what they want. That's why I brought that up. And somebody sent me that link. Thanks a lot, too. Again, another thing, Russia's now cutting off the gas to Ukraine. Because they're insolvent. Just think about it this way: the fact that Russia hasn't cut the gas off to Ukraine yet kind of tells you a little bit of something. They could have done this right from get-go. Now, what strategy will the Russians use to take over the entire Ukraine? Well, that depends. What the Russians, again, the game they have to play is the wait game. That's it. They win by default if they wait. If they wait, at some point, the U.S. economy is going to tank. This is why things are getting desperate. If Europe starts cracking, let's say this referendum, look, the Swiss did a couple of black swan events last year with their gold referendum, stuff like that. Scotland with the independence thing. England, I'm pretty sure the UK actually got, I don't think Cameron won. I think UKIP won and the election was rigged. It makes sense. Why? Because that would have busted up the Anglo-American Empire right away at its source. From the City of London, not the City of London, but the banking City of London. That's where almost all this tyranny comes from. That type of thing. That is the Anglo-American Empire, is the City of London, or the financial City of London. But if they were to do that, who knows what would happen? Look at Hungary. They're putting up fence because of all these refugees that are floating in the Mediterranean, because of the Obama-Hillary Clinton, regime change in Libya. All these refugees, and that's going to I think the refugee crisis is what's going, and the mass immigration is what's going to ultimately break up the Eurozone. People don't want all these refugees, And some people say, well, it's awfully hypocritical of Hungary to close its border to these refugees after, 1957, taking in all these, refugees that they took in. Okay, fair enough. But again, people are starting to catch on. It's manufactured. I feel bad for the refugees. I really do. And again, don't be surprised if you see Golden Dawn out there and makeshift gunboats strafing people in the Mediterranean. That's going to happen. You're going to see nationalist groups do this. Something I've said, and I know I do have a lot of Muslim watchers and stuff like that. Be very, have a plan for your family, because a lot of North American and European countries there's only 2 North American countries really. But these places are going to become dangerous places for Muslims. One thing I said in my 2015 prediction was terror, terror, terror. Look, WestJet here in Canada and all over the place, terrorist attack after terrorist attack, call in. Maybe it's a disgruntled employee, who knows, but it could be the terrorism. France, terrorism on a daily basis almost. It's terrorism, terrorism, terrorism. This was the year for it. How much is manufactured, who knows, but again, everything's coming to a catalyst. Now again, the reason why, hate crimes are down here in Canada. We have the lowest crime rate we've had since 1966, but the hate crime pertaining to Muslims is going up. So the crime rate is coming down, but people are starting to target them. Why? Because of the terrorism thing. Whether it's legitimate or not, again, it's not fair, because most people, again, and I'm not being an apologist here. Yes, Islam is a crazy religion because it can be taken as a double-edged sword. I've openly said that. I'm critical of it. But I'm also going to be fair and say, yes, I do understand. Again, you have 3 types of jihadists in the Middle East. You have your mercenary for hire, i.e. the proxy U.S.-funded ISIS, which you follow the money, you'll figure out who's paid, why these guys never run out of bullets. The type 2, the guy who's brainwashed into his ideology, thinks it's the end of days and is trying to join up with the riders of Khorasan and meet the al-Mahdi. That guy's also, your fundamental nut job terrorist, And then you've got the third guy, the guy who, has worked all day in the hot desert sun to come home to a smoldering, hell-fired house with his burning children and dead wife in the front yard. You know what I mean? That guy, you call him a terrorist or a freedom fighter. So I get it all. So foreign policy is a problem, yes. Terrorism is a problem, yes. The thing is it reached so much of it, it's Well, out of chaos, like Henry Kissinger would say. But the people who have the eyes to see and the ears to listen and the mind to think forward, they know that this is manufactured. And I'm pretty sure the Russian government know this is manufactured. Hence why I'm saying all they have to do is wait. They can fight a proxy war in Ukraine for 1,000 years, and it won't cost them hardly anything. But the United States is getting poorer. If they don't get a war going, and this is the desperation that I'm worried about. Somebody was asking me about broken arrows and stuff like that. That the Jade Helm thing, broken arrow. Well, the reference of a broken arrow in military terms is a lost nuke. Now, we still don't know what happened to those nukes that got lost at the Rifles Air Force Base. There was 5 B-51 nukes that were lost. Apparently, one was taken out to the middle, off the coast, into the ocean off the coast of Charleston and detonated 600 feet, 600 feet under the ocean, or 600 miles out to sea, or something like that. Again, can't really substantiate it. But the Russians picked up on the seismograph. They picked it up and they said that was probably a nuke going off underwater, not an earthquake. Who knows? Take that with what you want, right? So we don't know what, everything is true, but we do know that things are happening. So again, the first casualty of all wars is truth, and we are at war. Make no mistakes. Currency war, trade war, shooting war. So your trade war is all your sanctions. They're still ramping up sanctions on Russia as we speak, and it just goes and goes and goes. There's no stop. Now the Russians, the reason why they don't want to get into the wars, and I agree with Joe Skousen on this one too, is that the Russians are afraid to get into the war because they know that the Americans, have secret weapons, space weapons, whatever. Look at how all the Russian rockets that have been, malfunctioning in the past year and a half. Kind of strange. Russia taking on new ballistic missiles. Yes, their conventional war machinery is getting better. And you also have to understand, over there in Asia, most of the U.S. aircraft carriers, are getting near the end of their age. To scrap these things, is going to cost a phenomenal amount of money. It would be much cheaper to let a Dongfang 41 anti-ship missile take out an aircraft carrier, U.S. aircraft carrier, which would serve two purposes. Number one, you save the cost on sinking the aircraft carrier. You're sinking the aircraft carrier off your, way away from the United States anyway, so pollution isn't really the problem. Unfortunately, you're going to have to kill 8,000. Well, the government don't care about the 8,000 sailors aboard. You'll get a nice funeral and a medal for the service to your country. But aircraft carriers are expensive, right? So that's what it's about. And it would serve the better purpose of getting a war started with China. Now, the Chinese, they're out there saying, it's like they know that the United States is weak right now. And they're also out there saying that they're, again, they have a loser-takes-all mentality as well. They say that if they can't win the war, they will launch nukes. That's what they're saying. Now, there's another thing, and I agree with Joe Skousen on this, that, again, this is something that I picked up on, too. If the United States, this is where I kind of think that maybe it's really debatable whether Putin and China and the Anglo-American Empire are all the same team. It might be, because again, who benefits the most from destabilization of the United States and having a civil war going? Again, Russia and China. If you have a domestic dispute where, the North and the South wipe each other out, again, you go from 8,000 Abrams tanks down to 50, in a civil war. You go from 4,000 F-16s, whatever they have, down to, 200. Hey, Red Dawn invasion is coming the day after. Why? So winners, it won't matter who wins at that point. Why? Because they'll be so weak they can't defend the country. That's the point. So maybe this is a desired effect all along. So we don't know. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So that's why it's very important that people, when you see this stuff happen, don't get involved in it. All this semantic stuff that goes out there, especially like right now. Again, look at anything a white person does is pretty much evil. They talk about this shooting in the Church of the Nine People and how tragic it was. But yet, a day or two after, there was 2 mass shootings, black on black, something like 19 people shot, and I forget how many died. News doesn't even mention it. They can only mention it if it's a white guy. So you're not picking up on that? Where's the non-biased journalism? Nowhere to be found. Looks like an indoctrination to me. Or propaganda. And remember, they passed a bill saying that they can propagandize using mainstream media in the United States. They can propagandize the people. Now, something I have also said, hopefully I'm not missing, because there's just so much information. It all hits you in kind of like nothing goes on for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden, bang, you got all this stuff just flies into you. Again, you have all the Walmarts that are now being, and new malls that are now being like, with guard towers and stuff being built. So these things are going to double back as FEMA camps, that type of thing. Really strange that. But there's another thing, and this comes from some U.S. Marines. A guy was, I guess, doing one of those walking along the streets and just kind of interviewing people type of thing. And he was talking to two U.S. Marines. One guy was a little bit younger, the other guy a little more seasoned. And both in part, about the Jade Helm thing. One guy says, yes, I know exactly what's going on in Jade Helm. And again, most servicemen, I'm pretty sure there's lots of servicemen, active duty, law enforcement, military, that listen. Remember, most of these guys, doesn't pick a country, have disclosure forms where they can't have an opinion. They can't participate in online forums. They can't do that type of stuff. They're not allowed to speak out against their government. It's illegal to do this. It's illegal to do that. So a lot of these guys are just silent watchers. But these two guys, which will probably get thrown in the brig for what they did, they come out and he goes, the host of the guy says to these two things, goes, you guys know about Jade Helm? One goes, well, he says, I've heard of it, but I'm not a part of it, kind of thing. And the other guy goes, yes, he says, I know exactly what's going on in there. I'm a part of it, and I'm talking to a lot of guys that are in there. And he goes, right now that the U.S. public is terrified of you guys. And he goes, yes. He goes, don't be. He says, most of us, and he asked these guys blatantly. He says, and the thing is again, to my American viewers, don't get hung up on the gun confiscation. The gun confiscation is a divide and conquer thing. It's to make you nervous. They don't even have to go after. All they have to do is what they're doing already. They're going after the ammo. Gun confiscation, they can wait out the ammo. They might get small skirmishes going, so you burn up the ammo. You getting the idea? That's the key. So they asked the guys, would you basically kick in people's doors for gun confiscation? Both of them said no. They're going to uphold their oath to the Constitution. Both of them were parts of oath keepers. He says the sentiment is most guys won't do that. Hence, where the blue helmets may come in. And again, if you're a peacekeeper, take Tojo's advice. Don't invade the states. There's a gun behind every blade of grass, and the Americans will have no problem shooting at UN peacekeepers. No problem. If they think you're there to take away their freedoms, you're screwed. You are screwed. And it only takes the first guy to shoot at them. That's the thing. This is what it's penguin effect. And I'm not calling for violence. I'm just saying this is how it usually happens in history. People ball it up, and all of a sudden when they let go, it's bang. It's full. It's not gradual revolution. It's bang. Holy shit, the planet is burning. That type of thing. That's what happens. So these guys also said, yeah, the Jade Helm thing, there's a lot going on. Like, they didn't get into specifics because I don't think they would go to jail otherwise. But the thing is that they said, no, they're on our side. The people don't have to worry. Most U.S. soldiers won't do that. Now, remember a few years back, that was 2010, 2011, that there was a foiled U.S. military coup of about 2,000 soldiers that were ready to take out members of the Congress, including the Obama regime, and install General Petraeus as a acting president until new elections. And this thing got foiled. That was the rumor. But did it actually happen? Well, I'm saying there's going to be a U.S. military. There's no way, and even the young guys that are a little bit more stupid, that's why they get young soldiers, is because they're easier to brainwash. But as they get a little older and they start, thinking for themselves, they start to see that, hey, why am I doing these drills? Why do I have to put on gunship displays going through downtown Miami with, Dillon miniguns hanging out the side with blanks? That terrorizes the people. They don't need to see that. There's lots, the U.S. and every military in the world has makeshift cities, ghost towns that they practice in. They could do that there. They don't need to go out in the middle of the city. Oh, it's for realism and training. No, it's something else. So we have to keep our eyes on this stuff. So how much is going to be conspiracy? How much is not? Who knows? But the thing is it's all believable because we could see the propaganda coming out for this. Again, DHS, the number one threat to the United States is patriot white Christians and any gun owners. Though not ISIS, not terrorists, not that stuff. It's white people. That's what their own doctrine. They're afraid of patriots. Again, this whole thing about the Confederate flag, this is to rile up patriots. That's what it's done to do. Now, the other spin, too, again, on the rumor of, the Russians coming to the aids of, to the patriot groups for a secession movement. I don't really buy it, but again, there's probably a lot of patriots that will buy into that because right now people are looking for a leader. And Putin is not, trust me, he is not the leader. Yes, he may have an 80% approval rating, and Joe Scalzo, pretty much, nails it. I think on what he said was, yes, the reason why Putin has such an 80% rating is because he's basically just saying, look, the United States is coming to kill Mother Russia. Patriotism, patriotism, patriotism. He's riding the wave. He's riding the wave. So, he's standing up for the family, he's standing up for this, he's standing up for that. All the things that a lot of the right-wingers in the States tend to agree with. However, you would never want to live under a Putin regime. He is not a man for freedom. He's the other New World Order guy. Again, that one bloody chair up at the top that all these elites want to sit in, that's what the Anglo-American Empire is fighting the Eurasian Empire over, is that control, master control. It's never about the people, ever. Keep that in mind. When you hear we're going to war for women and children and democracy, the first thing they kill is women and children and democracy. Think about that. So again, all governments around the world are not serving their people. They've gone rogue in the name of corporations. And again, they're like heroin addicts. One guy laughed in one of his comments when when I said, forgive them, they know not what they do. But when I said, stop them before they do what they're going to do. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, is that they're insane. They're nut jobs. Henry Kissinger is not a sane man. George Soros is not a sane man. These are insane people. Hillary Clinton is an insane person. Obama is an insane person. Joe Biden is an insane person. John McCain, that's like two soups with two names crazy. I don't know what he's beyond crazy. He's lunatic. He's like Emperor Nero meets Captain Ahab. He's got to get that great white whale. Kill everybody, arm them all. We got to get into war. It's a shame we're not war. More war. We need more war. This guy's like, give him his fix. Give him his F-4 Phantom. Let him fly over a couple of deserted islands. Let him bomb them. Get it out of his system. Maybe we can help him. Give him a few drone MiG-21s to shoot down or something. Just help him, man. Jeez, help him. Lunatics. Jeez. So hopefully I'm not forgetting anything else here, but there's just so much to cover so fast. Again, whether Moldova is a part of NATO or not, we'll have to keep an eye on that because some people are saying that they are. And again, remember Article 5. Again, they're trying to lure the Russians into starting the shooting war. Again, these space weapons, the Star Wars program, again, I don't think the Americans have these secret weapons in high numbers. But they have to be awfully effective if they can pull it off with low-number weapons. The Russians are terrified of these things. They don't know exactly what they are. I think this is why the United States sells, or gives, they don't even sell it, they give Israel, their number one ally, all this U.S. military data and equipment and stuff like that, and then the Israelis turn around and sell it to the Chinese, and then I guess the Chinese would share it with the Russians. So the Russians know how to defeat this stuff. The Russians know how to defeat this stuff. But the thing is that's not the weapons they're worried about. What I think the idea is to kill as many people with conventional weapons, what we consider modern-day conventional weapons, and then when the Americans start losing the war, all of a sudden, the new Oppenheimer comes out, the new Einstein comes out, and here's the weapon that we have, and you don't even have to, they already have the weapons. They already have the weapons. That's my take on it, and that's what the Russians worry about. Again, I don't think they're gonna win the war, but I do believe that the body toll is, that's, again, Georgia Guidestones, 500 million. It will work. But I say if a war does break out, and you are active law enforcement military, you're going to have to do your duty. And the duty isn't go and fight the foreigners over there. Again, why is Johnny and Ivan shooting at each other in the first place? I'm sure if Johnny and Ivan sat down and had a conversation, they'd probably like each other. Have AR versus AK pop can shootouts or something. You know what I mean? So the idea of stoking these people, again, the Russians, they're being propagandized to get ready to fight the Americans because the Americans are trying to destroy Russia. And they are. But what they don't realize that, Putin is using this to ramp up his military. Don't get me wrong. But on the other hand, the American people, they're trying to be propagandized, again, to hate Russians. Again, why? Oh, well, they invaded the Ukraine, but they didn't. They were already there. You know what I mean? They're fighting a proxy war. They're doing the exact same thing, okay, that the Americans do all over the place. Who should you be more mad at? The Russians well, let's put it to you in perspective. Okay, right now Jade Helm is going on. Think about the cost of Jade Helm. But yet they tell the American people, we can't afford to police the Mexican-U.S. border. Mind you, don't worry about the Canadian-U.S. border. You're not going to get by that one. You know what I mean? But the Mexico, we can't afford that one. But Jade Helm, what does it cost? If they were really, really, really worried about an invasion of terrorists and stuff like that coming up, they would lock down that border right away. Or that's the desired effect. They want that. So we're putting all our troops in place with Jade Helm so that when these guys finally start shooting at us, we can say, oh my God, but we're ready for it. You know? Again, Jade Helm, we're so many levels. The United States is inviting an attack. They want another 9/11 times 1,000. That's what they want. The government has gone rogue. The government has gone rogue. And proof, well, just look at the policies. Look at the policies. Again, if you're an American, the NDRP is what you want to look at. So it's not so much what might happen as well. Just look what's happening now. That should be your alarm on the fence. And how many soldiers are going to follow orders? I don't know. I think a lot of them will, but I think that's also what gets your Patriot uprising right away. Again, oh yeah, but they got drones, and Patriot uprising would be crushed right away. Look, the guys that are going to be doing the uprising are going to be active duty law enforcement military. The Patriots will follow them. Why? Because these are guys in the systems. They know how to take it down. Again, yeah, you could have a CT camera on every corner. Again, you know, communist student with rock trumps CT camera. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Oh yeah, but they got the data and the facial recognition, all stuff. Power grid down. You know what I mean? This is the stuff that you got to be prepared for. When the shooting starts, you don't want to be anywhere near it, because again, this is a desired effect. What you want to be prepared for is the aftermath. You want to stay out of this. I'm never calling for violence. I'm telling you, do not do an uprising in your country. You need to take it back a different way. Voting is not working. I get that. I agree with Adam Korkashon when he said, you know, a tyrannical government makes peaceful revolution impossible at some point, and he's correct on that. But it doesn't mean you can't nip it in the bud in other ways. It doesn't mean you have to go to a violent revolution. A violent revolution is exactly what they want. They're ready for that. The guy who's going to be running out there with his AR-15 to take down the government, that's not going to work. What they're worried about is the Patriot guy that fought against Sunnis and stuff like that in Afghanistan and the Taliban and all that, in Iraq and Afghanistan and all that, all those places, who learned a trick or two, saying that, you know what, these guys don't come out and meet us in the battlefield. They do guerrilla warfare. Those are the guys they're worried about. Why? Because, well, again, look, one active shooter, you send out 5,000 guys to find him. 2 prisoners escape from New York, you send out 300 police officers to find him. The second a shot fires, and this is what the Taliban does and all these jihadist groups, one guy fires a couple of shots, everybody stops in place, meanwhile it gives the other guys a chance to get around. That type of thing. Plant this, plant that. Okay, the road you just came in on was fine, but when you go back, there's an IED on it. That type of thing. That's what they're worried about. The Utah data center, I think that's a purpose target. I don't think they have a whole bunch of data centers. I think the ones that actually are for the system are probably like in places like Cheyenne Mountain and stuff like that. Hence why they reopened Cheyenne Mountain. You know, that's where the data centers are really at. Why? Because they know what's going to happen to like these big government buildings. Sure, they got a fence around them, but again, people are going to take these things out very easily with makeshift artillery. They know this. You know, again, I'm not calling for anybody doing any violence, but they know this. So that's why the stuff is not where you think it's good. Their data centers are going to be in other places. You know, the other thing too is they've got to be aware by now that the Russians and the Chinese, if they want to fight a war, again, this will be in my WW3 global view, which I'm still working on, and I will be hopefully done fairly soon. The strategy is for the Russians, their top priority for the Russians and the Chinese is to take out satellites. Why? It blinds the Americans. Now, a lot of guys say, well, don't you think the U.S. is going to do the same thing? Sure, the Russians are counting on this. They would love this. Why? Because their machinery works analog. You know, their airplanes, you know, when you're limited, why do you think an AWAC airplane is such a high priority target? Because it can see far. Why do you think a satellite is such a high priority target? It can see far. You close that, next thing you know, it's a numbers game, mano a mano. The Russians win. You have less than 400 F-22s. They got, you know, thousands and thousands of fighters. You know, they got APCs. They've got low frequency radar that trumps stealth. They would win in that numbers game, tank per tank. Sure, the American, if the Russians put every tank they have mothballed back into service, regardless of upgrades or not, and just what they have in service, tank for tank, they outnumber U.S. tanks probably about 5 or 10 to 1. Think about that, And if you don't have satellite communication, you don't have an AWAC, I wouldn't say World War II style warfare, but it'd be like 1960s, maybe 1970s style warfare. You're going to be meeting your opponent in the sky. You're going to be meeting them coming around a corner in your Abrams or your Leopard tank or your T-72 or your T-90. You're going to be meeting these guys on the battlefield, number for number. Think about that. Doesn't mean they would win, but it sure the hell would change the odds. And this is the strategy I think they're going to employ with China and Russia. But anyway, I know I'm probably forgetting stuff. There's always some big points to stuff going on. So much is going on right now. Look into it. I just got this on early stages, so maybe how much truth to it, but it does seem like there are warships, and they've called for warships, and it's not like warships haven't been, Russian Black Fleet hasn't been in the, again, going to Venezuela and places like that. I'd be more interested to know if they're going to Cuba, going to be doing these drills off of Cuba or off of Venezuela. Who knows? But they could also be using it to arm up insurgents in Mexico as well. So we'll have to wait and see. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Thank you very much to everybody who has. You can check out my WW3 Updates Facebook page. You can post geopolitical links there. On Twitter, I just post this video there. I don't tweet or anything like that. But you can follow that one just because it might get in front of an audience. I just posted a video there. It's not RegMe at Twitter. Next to that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like, be true to yourself, be true to others, always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. Eh? G'day, hi, and welcome. Okay. Fat dog on step, check. Nice day, check. And let's go find Fat Cat. And I got lots and lots to cover on this one. Disclaimer, I can't really tell you 100%. Hey, Fat Cat, check. Hey, Kazoo, what's up, buddy? Says, you woke me up. I only get 23 hours of sleep a day. How could you? And it's true. That's what, poor guy. Okay, so take this one kind of with a grain of salt because there's a lot flying around on this one. I've only found a couple of sources on it, so like anything, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But it looks like Russia is sending a flotilla from the Black Sea Fleet to off the coast of Texas, or I guess you'd be in the Gulf of Mexico. So there's a lot of rumors why. Now they're staying in international waters, obviously, but these are basically comprised of. Basically, I forget, there was a website that had she had all the names of all the ships that were going to be involved in this. There were probably about 8 or 10 ships all total, including submarines, boomer submarines, and, basically one of their more powerful, Kirkov? I can't remember. Anyway, it's one of their bigger, you might as well call it a battle cruiser. It's not quite a destroyer, it's a little bit bigger. It's a missile boat anyway, and basically an aircraft carrier killer. You know what I mean? And of course, they've got a couple of different types of submarines: attack submarine, I believe, and nuclear strategic submarine, as well as rescue submarines. And there's also a part of the flotilla is a medvac, a naval medvac team or whatever, and there's going to be Russian Spetsnaz also, in this training drill. Where exactly this drill is going to take place, I'm not 100% sure, but the rumors are this, and there's a lot of rumors, and hopefully I don't miss it, because there's lots going on in the world right now. Now, some people say, if we remember, and you can track this, okay, the Russians said that they were going to have warships in the Gulf of Mexico in 2015. They said I was actually kind of surprised we haven't seen them earlier. But then again, maybe they were there all along. We've already kind of, this is an embarrassment for the United States every time the Russians show up in the water unexpectedly. Like that submarine that kind of, was steaming back on the surface from Venezuela, I think last year or the year before, which was in the Gulf of Mexico for 2 months before they knew about it. And then, of course, in Hurricane Sandy, when a Victor-class submarine, broke down and shows up basically in Norfolk. Yeah, hello, we need new submarine part. You have some. We have vodka to trade. It's like, kind of scary. Meanwhile, when you have about a third of the U.S. naval fleet out surrounding China, there's again nobody at home. Everybody, the military's everywhere. Nobody's at home. Who the hell's going to defend the place? Okay. Now, there's other things that we have to factor in. Now, Joe Skousen, I was listening to him, and I like Joe Skousen a lot, and he finally said something that, kind of reaffirms what I said, that the Soviet Union never collapsed. It just diverted the money to the military-industrial complex and sold the resources, pennies on the dollars, to the oligarchs. Well, pretty much the same thing that's happening in the United States right now. The only difference is the United States is doing it overtly. The Russians did it covertly. And there's lots going on in the world today. So again, my mind's like, oh, okay, don't forget this, don't forget that. And I'm sure I'm going to forget things. So we go back, okay, we know the Russians have said, that they were going to have training in that. Now, the United States has just agreed to open up embassies in Cuba. And all of a sudden you hear about Russian ships steaming towards, I don't know what port they're going to play in. I mean, they have Spetsnaz on board, so if they do, that means they're going to be, if this is not just a rumor and it's true. But the lady, I know a lot of people ask me, can you provide links for I go through so much, and I'm only one guy, and I don't have internet at home, so a lot of the stuff you got to hunt down yourself. But it does make sense, because again, the Russians, they play around in Venezuela. They could be doing a couple of things here, something that I've speculated about and something I said to watch out for. That type of thing. But we also know that the Russians have been opening, I think they opened up a base in Cuba as well. And this could be, again, the Cubans are going to get the raw end of the deal here. I think the Cubans are going to stay pro-Russian government-wise, and just, they're going to get stuff from the States, but, they're just going to, use the States. They're not actually going to, become pro-American. They're never going to do that. I'm not talking about, you got to understand, when was the last fair election in Cuba? you know what I mean? Exactly. So, government-wise, never mind the people. It's always about the governments, right? So, and another thing, with all these drills going on, some people, now this one's a bit down the rabbit hole. I don't quite believe this one myself, just because it doesn't make sense, but there is kind of some, it could happen, And one YouTuber put it very well. He says, like, the Chinese, they're forward thinking. They think, a couple hundred years in advance. The Russians, the same thing. But the Chinese, they'll do something very incremental and whatever, where the Russians will pull a maneuver, a chess maneuver that could end up with getting their hand cut off. It's like win big, lose big, that 50-50 bluff that I've been talking about. Now, one of the things, we go back to that Cossack Banditos biker shootout. Now, some people have speculated, and again, take it for what it is, because you can never really, prove this stuff, but you can sort of see a pattern emerging, that they said it was about Russians trying to arm up patriot groups in the United States. Now, okay, is there anything that could back this? Well, we know Jade Helm is going on, and it's to find insurgents. Again, Jade Helm is for just about anything. If World War III were to break out, well, you got Russian warships pretty close to your coast, so you're ready for them. If they're on the land, but the soldiers are where they need to be if Spetsnaz were to invade, which I don't think they would. They wouldn't. The Russians wouldn't invade with a couple hundred people. But then again, they could put in insurgents. Again, like you see in the Ukraine, you got 50 local citizens fighting as rebels under the command of maybe one or two special forces, what's called FSB, the new KGB guys, those type of things. So they could do that, and that's exactly what Jade Helm is about. It's or one of the main things it's about. But it also, if a financial collapse were to happen, everybody's where they need to be. If gun confiscation, which I'm not really worried about the gun confiscation one. I know a lot of Americans are, but I think that's just kind of a sidetrack issue. You got bigger fish to fry. They're not really worried about the guns. I mean, armored tank take Trump's gun. What they're worried about is the guy that are going to go Sunni on the government. IEDs, blowing up infrastructure.